Hello, dear listener, and welcome. As the soft curtains of night begin to draw around us, and the day's busy thoughts start to gently recede, I invite you to drift with me into the deep, calming waters of ancient thought. Tonight, we will journey back through time, to a world where philosophy and science were just beginning to awaken, to a mind that dared to look beyond the immediate and grasp at the infinite. Our guide on this quiet voyage is a man whose name, though perhaps not as widely known as some, holds a profound significance in the tapestry of human understanding: Anaximander. Anaximander, a name that sounds like a gentle whisper from antiquity. Anaximander. He lived a very, very long time ago, a quiet existence spanning from around 610 years before the Common Era to about 546 BC. Imagine, for a moment, the world he inhabited. A world without electric lights, without the constant hum of machines, where the stars above were a brilliant, uninterrupted blanket, inviting profound contemplation. He hailed from a vibrant city called Miletus, a bustling port situated in Ionia, which today we know as part of modern-day Turkey. Miletus was a remarkable place, a crucible of thought, a place where minds like Anaximander's could truly flourish. It was here that a unique intellectual movement, now known as the Milesian school, took root. And Anaximander was right at its very heart. He was a pupil, initially, learning from a figure widely regarded as the very first philosopher in the Western tradition, Thales. Picture the scene: a young, eager mind, listening to his master, Thales, speak of the fundamental nature of reality, perhaps even pondering if all things, at their very core, were water. This foundational teaching, the idea of a single, unifying principle from which everything else arose, clearly left an indelible mark on Anaximander. Yet, as we will explore, Anaximander would eventually, and quite bravely, venture beyond even his esteemed teacher's ideas, pushing the boundaries of abstraction into realms previously untouched. After Thales, it was Anaximander who stepped into the role of master, guiding the next generation of thinkers. He was the second beacon in this lineage of profound inquiry, and among his pupils, we find another name that echoes through history: Anaximenes. Some even argue that Pythagoras, the legendary mathematician, may have counted himself among Anaximander's students. Can you feel the gentle current of knowledge flowing through these ancient minds, each building upon the last, refining, questioning, and expanding? It's a curious thought, isn't it, that so little of this brilliant man's life and work is widely known today? It's as if the vast river of time has gently eroded most of the direct evidence of his existence. Yet, what little remains, like precious, smooth pebbles on a riverbank, tells a truly remarkable story. According to historical documents, Anaximander holds a very special distinction. He is the very first philosopher known to have taken up a quill and written down his studies. Imagine the courage, the foresight, to commit such grand and abstract thoughts to the fragile medium of early writing, at a time when much knowledge was passed down through oral tradition. Unfortunately, only one small fragment of his original work has survived the millennia. A single, profound echo. But even from this whisper, and from the fragmentary testimonies of later scholars who referenced his work, we can begin to paint a portrait of this extraordinary man. Anaximander was not merely a philosopher in the contemplative sense. He was an early proponent of what we now call science. He possessed a boundless curiosity, a deep yearning to observe and to explain the myriad different aspects of the universe around him. His particular fascination, a central thread running through his entire philosophy, was the universe's origins. He wasn't content with just a crib. What he saw. He wanted to understand how it all came to be, and what held it all together. Crucially, he made a groundbreaking claim, one that resonates deeply even in our modern scientific understanding. He claimed that nature is ruled by laws, just as human societies are governed by their own laws. And furthermore, he believed that anything that disturbs the delicate balance of nature simply does not last long. This concept of an inherent, impartial justice woven into the very fabric of the cosmos is incredibly profound. It suggests a universe not subject to the whims of arbitrary gods, but rather to an underlying, predictable, and self-regulating order. Close your eyes for a moment, and let that idea settle within you, a universe with its own innate justice, its own gentle rhythm of balance and restoration. Like many of the grand thinkers of his era, Anaximander's philosophy was not confined to a single discipline. It was expansive, touching upon many fields of inquiry. In astronomy, for instance, he didn't just gaze at the stars, he actively attempted to describe the intricate mechanics of celestial bodies, to understand their movements and their relationship to the Earth. He sought to create a coherent model, a rational explanation for the dance of the heavens. Then, there's his monumental contribution to physics, and truly, to the very art of philosophical thought itself. His postulation that the infinite, or as he called it, the apeiron, was the source of all things. This single idea, this leap of conceptual abstraction, elevated Greek philosophy to an entirely new level. We will spend some quiet moments later, truly unwrapping the profound implications of the apeiron. Beyond the abstract, Anaximander also engaged with the practical. His keen knowledge of geometry allowed him to introduce a significant tool to Greece, the gnomon. Imagine the sundial, that ancient instrument that measures the passage of time by the shadow cast by a vertical stick. This simple yet profound device, which Anaximander brought, was not just for telling time. It was a tool for astronomical observation, for marking the solstices and equinoxes, for understanding the sun's journey across the sky. It was a tangible link between the celestial and the terrestrial, a way to observe the universe's laws at play right there on the ground. And in the realm of geography, he was a true pioneer. He created a map of the world. Think of the immense undertaking, the collaborative effort, the synthesis of knowledge from travelers and sailors, all brought together to represent the known world visually. This map was not just a drawing, it was a tool for understanding, for exploration, and for expanding the human perception of their place in the larger world. It contributed greatly to the advancement of geography, laying groundwork for future explorers and thinkers. Anaximander was not just an ivory tower philosopher, he was also deeply involved in the practical affairs of Miletus. He was even sent as a leader to one of its colonies, a city called Apollonia on the Black Sea coast. This wasn't merely a political errand, it hints at his esteemed status, his ability to lead and to govern. Perhaps he was sent as a legislator, to help craft a constitution for the new settlement, or simply to ensure the colony's allegiance to Miletus. This shows us a man who could bridge the worlds of profound theoretical contemplation and practical civic responsibility. His life reminds us that wisdom often manifests in diverse ways, touching both the abstract and the concrete. Let's pause, and gently explore the threads of his life a little further. Anaximander, the son of Praxeades, was born in the 3rd year of the 42nd Olympiad, a moment in ancient time we mark as 610 BC. Imagine the rhythm of life then, measured by the great athletic games, the Olympiads, a unique way of keeping time. Apollodorus of Athens, a Greek grammarian who 5 centuries later, tells us that Anaximander was 64 years old during the 2nd year of the 58th Olympiad, a period we pinpoint as 547 to 546 BC, and that he died shortly after. A good, long life, filled with deep thought and significant contributions. Trying to build a precise timeline of his work, to say exactly when he wrote what, is simply impossible. The sands of time have shifted too much, and no document offers us those precise chronological markers. Yet we do have glimpses. Themistocles, a Byzantine rhetorician from the 4th century, tells us something truly extraordinary. Anaximander was the first of the known Greeks to publish a written document on nature. Think of that. His texts, likely written in the nascent form of prose, would have been among the very earliest written works in the Western world. Imagine being one of the first humans to articulate complex ideas in a structured, non-poetic written form. It's an immense legacy. By the time of Plato, centuries later, Anaximander's profound philosophy had, sadly, been almost forgotten. It is primarily through the writings of later giants like Aristotle, and his successor Theophrastus, along with a few other ancient commentators, that we have managed to piece together the precious little information that remains. These later thinkers, in their own extensive works, would occasionally reference Anaximander, like archaeologists unearthing fragments of a lost civilization. We know from Aristotle, for instance, that Thales, also from Miletus, definitely preceded Anaximander. And while it's debated whether Thales was his formal teacher in the way we understand it today, there is absolutely no doubt that Anaximander was deeply influenced by Thales' groundbreaking theory, the idea that everything, at its core, is derived from water. This was the intellectual starting point, the initial premise upon which Anaximander would build and expand. One thing that is not debatable, however, is that even the ancient Greeks themselves considered Anaximander to be a central figure in what they recognized as the monist school, which began in Miletus. It was a clear philosophical lineage, Thales, followed by Anaximander, and then concluding with Anaximenes. This school sought to find a single, underlying principle, a monos, or one, from which all multiplicity in the world could be explained. The Roman rhetorician Aelian, writing in the 3rd century, paints a picture of Anaximander as the leader of the Milesian colony to Apollonia. This detail, though seemingly small, suggests a man of significant standing, a prominent citizen who was trusted with important civic duties. It wasn't uncommon, Aelian notes, for philosophers to also engage in political matters. It is very likely that the leaders of Miletus sent him to Apollonia either as a legislator, to help establish the colony's laws and constitution, or simply to ensure its continued loyalty and prosperity. This blending of deep contemplation with active engagement in the world truly defines Anaximander. He wasn't just thinking about the world, he was also helping to shape it. And so, as the final years of his life gently unfolded, Anaximander found himself living under a shifting geopolitical landscape. His beloved Miletus, and indeed, much of Ionia, became subject to the vast Persian Achaemenid Empire. It is a reminder that even the deepest philosophical inquiries occur within the context of a changing world, and that thinkers, too, are bound by the ebb and flow of history. Now let us turn our attention to the heart of Anaximander's genius, his theories. His ideas, born in that fascinating crucible of early Greek thought, were not formed in a vacuum. They were influenced by the rich tapestry of Greek mythical tradition, the inherited stories of gods and heroes that permeated his culture. He was also profoundly shaped, as we've noted, by the seminal ideas of Thales, the father of Western philosophy. And significantly, his thought also absorbed observations made by older, sophisticated civilizations in the Near East, particularly Babylon, with their advanced astronomical knowledge. But what makes Anaximander truly stand out is that he took all these diverse influences, myths, nascent philosophy, and empirical observation, and wove them together, developing them not through mere storytelling, but through a new, burgeoning rational lens. In his earnest desire to find some universal principle, some fundamental truth that underpinned everything, Anaximander shared a commonality with traditional religion. He assumed the existence of a cosmic order. He believed there was an overarching structure, a divine arrangement to the universe. And in expressing these profound ideas, he naturally used the language of myths that was familiar to his society, a language which often ascribed divine control to various spheres of reality. This was a common and accepted practice for the Greek philosophers of his time. They lived in a society that perceived gods everywhere, and so they could gently fit their burgeoning rational ideas into a system that was tolerably elastic, one that allowed for both the divine and the rational to coexist, at least for a time. Some scholars, looking back, see a distinct gap, an almost abrupt break, between this older mythical way of thinking and the new, rational approach that became the main characteristic of the archaic period in the Greek city-states, roughly from the 8th to the 6th century BC. This perceived rupture has even given rise to the phrase, Greek miracle, suggesting a sudden, miraculous emergence of reason. But perhaps, upon closer inspection, there wasn't such an abrupt break as it initially appears. Perhaps Anaximander shows us a more gradual, organic transition. Consider the basic elements of nature: water, air, fire, earth. These were the primordial forces, the foundational components that the earliest Greek philosophers believed made up the universe. These concepts weren't entirely new. In fact, they represented the ancient, primordial forces imagined in much earlier ways of thinking, rooted deep within mythical consciousness. The collision, the interaction of these forces, was what the mythical tradition had called cosmic harmony. In the old cosmogonies, the ancient stories of creation, such as those told by Hesiod in the 8th to 7th century BC, or by Pherecydes in the 6th century BC, order was established through a kind of monarchic struggle. Think of the mighty Zeus, establishing his cosmic order in the world by violently destroying the powers that threatened this harmony, such as the monstrous Titans. It was a story of divine intervention, of a powerful, dominant deity imposing order through force. But Anaximander, with his subtle yet revolutionary mind, offered a different vision. He claimed that the cosmic order is not monarchic. It is not established by a single, all-powerful deity imposing their will, like Zeus. Instead, it is governed by an impersonal, inherent principle of balance and justice. This is where his concept of the apeiron truly shines. Let us sink into the gentle mystery of the apeiron. The word itself, apeiron, means boundless, unlimited, or indefinite. It was Anaximander's bold answer to the question of ultimate origins. Thales had said water. Anaximander, however, recognized a crucial problem with this. If everything came from water, then water itself must be the ultimate, foundational stuff. But if water is eternal and infinite, how could fire come into being from it? How could earth, or air, or all the myriad opposites we see in the world, emerge from a single, definite substance like water, without that source itself becoming exhausted or overcome by its opposite? Anaximander's genius lay in proposing a source that was not any of the specific elements we observe. The apeiron was not water, not air, not fire, not earth. It was something prior to all of these, something more fundamental, something truly indefinite. Imagine it as an boundless, undifferentiated, primordial mass, without qualities, without limits, from which everything else could emerge without contradiction. Picture a vast, cosmic womb, an infinite expanse of unformed potential. This apeiron, being boundless, contained within itself all the potential for everything that is, and everything that could ever be. Because it was indefinite, it could give rise to the definite. Because it was boundless, it could contain all the various boundaries and forms we observe in the cosmos. And crucially, because the apeiron itself was not any specific element, it could not be destroyed or consumed by the strife of opposites that characterize our world. Water battles fire, earth settles air. But the apeiron stands above, or rather, underlies all these conflicts. It is the neutral, eternal reservoir from which all things differentiate and to which all things ultimately return. This concept of the apeiron elegantly solved the problem of change and the persistence of the cosmos. If the source of everything was, say, water, then water would eventually consume all other things, or be consumed by them. But if the source is indefinite, then it can continually give birth to distinct things, and then receive them back into itself, maintaining a perpetual balance. This leads us back to Anaximander's profound insight that nature is ruled by laws, just like human societies, and anything that disturbs the balance of nature does not last long. Within the apeiron, there is an inherent justice, a cosmic law that dictates the emergence and return of things. Hot and cold, wet and dry, light and dark, these opposites, which emerge from the apeiron, are in constant interaction, a dynamic tension. But none can ultimately triumph over the others permanently, because they are all ultimately manifestations of the indefinite apeiron itself. When one opposite oversteps its bounds, it must, in due course, recede and make way for its opposite, maintaining a cosmic equilibrium. Imagine the gentle breathing of the universe. An exhalation of definite forms and qualities from the apeiron, and then an inhalation, a gentle reabsorption back into its boundless embrace. This cyclical process, driven by an impersonal, inherent law of balance, is Anaximander's vision of cosmic justice. It's not a kingly decree, not a divine judgment from a singular god, but an intrinsic principle woven into the very fabric of existence. This was a truly revolutionary idea. It began the shift from a world governed by arbitrary divine will to a world governed by discoverable natural laws. It was the first glimmering of a universe that could be understood through reason, not just through myth. The apeiron represented a bold step towards philosophical monism, explaining the many by appealing to a single, underlying, non-empirical reality. Let us gently move to his cosmological contributions. Anaximander was fascinated by the mechanics of celestial bodies. He proposed a very imaginative model for the universe. Imagine the Earth as a cylindrical drum, floating freely in the center of the cosmos, supported by nothing. This was a radical departure from older ideas where Earth was supported by water or rested on something else. For Anaximander, the Earth remained in place because it was equidistant from everything else, and therefore had no reason to move in any particular direction. It was a perfect equilibrium, a beautiful thought of balance in the void. Around this cylindrical Earth, he envisioned rings of fire, encased in tubes of compressed air. These tubes had holes, which we perceive as the sun, moon, and stars. The rotation of these fiery rings, with their apertures, would explain the movements of the celestial bodies. When a hole was blocked, we would see an eclipse. While scientifically superseded, this was a profoundly rational attempt to see a mechanical model of the universe, based on observation and logical deduction, rather than on mythological narratives. It was an early exercise in cosmological physics, attempting to describe how the universe works. Think, too, about his practical contributions. The gnomon, for instance. This seemingly simple stick in the ground was a powerful scientific instrument. By observing the length and direction of its shadow throughout the day and across the seasons, one could determine local noon, track the solstices, the longest and shortest days, and the equinoxes, days of equal day and night. This was crucial for understanding the rhythms of the year, for agriculture, for navigation, and for further astronomical observations. Anaximander's introduction of the gnomon to Greece was a tangible tool for unlocking the laws of nature he so deeply believed in, and his map of the world. Imagine the state of geographical knowledge at that time. Perhaps some rudimentary charts for sailors, or travelers' anecdotal descriptions. Anaximander's map was an attempt to create a systematic, comprehensive representation of the known world, to bring order and clarity to geographical understanding. It would have shown the land masses, the oceans, perhaps even some mythological elements, but fundamentally it was a step towards a scientific, empirical approach to geography. It allowed for a more abstract understanding of space, and undoubtedly spurred further exploration and mapping. It gave people a conceptual framework to understand their place in the larger world, moving beyond local perspectives to a broader, more unified view. Anaximander's contributions were thus multifaceted, a beautiful blend of deep philosophical abstraction and concrete scientific observation. He was a bridge builder, connecting the ancient world of myth with the emerging world of rational inquiry. He saw the universe not as a chaotic plaything of the gods, but as an ordered cosmos, governed by impersonal, intelligible laws. His apeiron, his boundless and indefinite source, was the ultimate guarantor of this order, ensuring that balance was maintained, that justice prevailed, not through divine intervention, but through the inherent nature of reality itself. As we conclude our quiet journey with Anaximander, allow his spirit of profound inquiry to settle within you. His daring to look beyond the obvious, to conceptualize the infinite, to seek out the underlying laws of nature, reminds us of the endless wonders of the universe and the human mind's capacity to grasp them. His gentle wisdom, born in ancient Miletus, continues to resonate, a soothing reminder that even in the vastness of the cosmos, there is an inherent order, a gentle balance, and a perpetual rhythm. As you drift towards sleep, perhaps you can imagine that boundless, indefinite apeiron, the source of all things, holding the universe in its gentle, eternal embrace. Feel the quiet justice of the cosmos, the subtle interplay of opposites, and the peace of a world governed by its own inherent laws. Sleep deeply, dear listener, and may your dreams be as expansive and profound as the apeiron itself. Good night.